What's up, guys? Check out, we got a special episode for you guys this morning. I'm actually got my guy Matt Atkinson on this morning. Let me introduce Matt real quick. First of all, head of videography, head of marketing, head of all things related to just about everything that we do inside of our real estate and our mammoth businesses. Matt, what's up, man? Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing? I see you're at the beach.
We are at the beach house. Yeah, man. I'm excited to be down here taking a day and just enjoying some seagulls and some salt air with Addie. Addie's sitting here doing schoolwork with us while we're talking. Look at her. Oh, isn't she cute? She knows we're talking about her too. She just won't turn her head. But that's all right. So if you're watching live, guys, actually we have a special broadcast for you guys this morning, talking about a high-level investment opportunity that we have that we've been working on now for a long time. Excited to bring it to you guys publicly. Excited to show it to you. If you're an accredited investor, we'd love to talk to you afterwards about getting involved in the deal. I'm going to have my good buddy Tim Bratz joining us here in a second. Tim ran into some traffic on the way to work, so I figured we'd get on here and we'd wrap for a minute, Matt, until Tim jumps on, and we'll just we'll close it up. So, how's this whole COVID thing changed you aside from 3 inches in your hair length?
It's not too bad. I mean, I'm starting to get a little stir crazy. I mean, luckily I have a big family, and like all my siblings are also in relationships, so we're still seeing like the same amount of people. So it's not too bad, but.
Oh, you can't say that on public view, man. I'm gonna send the police to your house.
It's okay. We're social distancing. We're not interacting with anyone else, so we're keeping the circle.
You haven't come within 6 feet of your girlfriend yet in 2 months? Good for you, man.
So I'm actually at her new place right now. She moved here 3 weeks ago. So I helped her move in, and
nice. Yeah. And you staying 6 feet apart all that time?
Yeah.
I love it. So what else, man? I mean, you know, you're like a jack of all trades, man. I mean, I'm serious. I say this to you all the time, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but I mean, you know, you do our audio, video, marketing stuff, copy, you know, content, manage all the back end, lead gen. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. How have you been able to overcome all that stuff and be productive, you know, when there's no office to go to?
I think the really only change is like, people aren't, when I'm in the office, I'm talking to everyone, everyone's interacting with me, and it's way easier just to get distracted that way. When I'm at home, it's just me, or like my brother will come in the room and play video games on the other side of the room, but like nobody's asking me to do anything or like fix anything throughout the day. So like, I feel like I'm able to get a lot more done.
So you're actually saying that you're more productive without being in the busy office atmosphere with a bunch of people all around you?
A little bit. I think so. Yeah.
I love that. So the distractions get, you know, I mean, it's good. It's social interaction. I know it can tend to be distracting, but, you know, right now you're able to get more effective work, more, you know, straight to the point, you know, no distractions for the brother playing video games, possibly more productive than you used to be, it's just hard for me to believe because you were productive as hell before.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah.
Nice. Cool. So it looks like our boy Tim hopped on here. Let's give him a shot. Matt, I appreciate you being on, brother.
Yeah.
Tim, you're in the office.
What's going on, guys?
What's happening, man? We were just chatting with Matt. We had to go live by a certain time. And, all the links start to expire. So we figured we'd get on. We'd warm up the audience, do a little pre-show, warm up for them, get them excited, and then, you know, the main course is here now. So welcome to the show, brother. I appreciate you being on.
No, dude, I appreciate you having me, man. Excited to be here. I always appreciate the value and stuff that you bring, man. So we've been friends for a long time and learned a lot from you. So excited to be on and be doing a deal together too, man.
Yeah, I love this. So just a quick background, you know, our team and I have been working on this deal for a long time, getting it to fruition. You know, a lot of back end commercial package is a little bit different than just going out and buying a, you know, residential fix and flip, which, you know, you can do relatively sight unseen. This is much more due diligence, background study, you know, variances and attorneys and engineers and all that's kind of good stuff. So the team has done a lot of legwork in the back end. Just to get to this point to bring you guys this deal, and we're super excited about it. And then we're also super excited to bring Tim and his team along for the ride because to recognize what an awesome deal this was. So I want to be able to, you know, like I said, this is a little bit of a have a different F5 this morning, different F5 report. We're here reporting on, an awesome opportunity that we have, and we want to share with you guys. Want to present it to you guys today. So that's why my good buddy Tim's on here. And Tim, I'm excited to have you, man. So let's get rocking.
This hits on the finance pillar, which then leads into residual income and passive income and wealth building. That opens up all the other F's. So
it's all legacy building.
I think it fits, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, TK? Good morning. So let's hit the slide here real quick and show everybody what we're talking about. So and Matt, let's take that banner off. There we go. Cool. So this is super interesting to me, Tim, because I've been having this conversation. I was talking to an investor last week, and I said to him, a lot of people invest in different things. It's easy to get excited about certain things. HGTV has made single family fix and flip exciting for years, stuff like that. I said, self-storage, right? It's just not sexy, but it's super appealing. And my investor says to me, I don't care if it's sexy. I care that the numbers are sexy, right? So I thought that was an interesting take on that.
Dude. Like people who I can totally understand maybe newer investors into real estate. They like the stuff that looks nice on the brochure. They like the granite countertops. They like, the fancy pitches on the roofs and all these different types of decor and that kind of stuff. Like if you are investing not as a hobby, but as an actual wealth building strategy, then dude, self-storage is one of the best asset classes you can possibly be in. I buy primarily multifamily apartment buildings. We can go into my story if you guys want, but I have 2 self-storage facilities as well. And I have over $300 million of commercial assets. And my self-storage facilities unaltered during this COVID-19 crisis. Like with everything that's going on, like just they're the most stable properties in my entire portfolio. And I'm looking at this thing and thinking like, it's amazing to me. And I shared that Mark Millichap report with you that just came out a couple of weeks ago. And it's like, dude, great prospects for self-storage. So it's something that we're spending a lot of time on too.
Yeah, no, we actually got a clip of that at the end of this presentation. And it's interesting. It's a very insulated, economically insulated industry and sector, right? Like it seems that, self-storage is cool because people just don't get rid of their stuff, right? So in a great market, you got businesses, overflow, inventory, MLM people putting their stuff in a locker, working from the locker, that type of thing. And then in the downside, when stuff starts to soften up, you got people downsizing from bigger houses. They still need somewhere to put their stuff. Economically, they say, you know what, for $75, I'll rent a locker and put my stuff in there. And people don't, you're not going to get rid of it. Like we just don't get rid of our stuff. So it's just an interesting dynamic.
And I don't know do you have a statistic on how long people keep a self-storage locker for?
I read that in the feasibility report. I think, you're right.
Like 4 years, 5 years or something.
I was just going to say 3. I was going to say 3. Yeah, it's in the study that we had done, and the stats are so interesting. Some of the stuff.
My dad's had one for 20 years. He's got a 6,000 square foot house. He's got a storage locker that's I don't know, 200 square feet for the past 20. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like you don't even have any kids in the house anymore. Like you have all these empty bedrooms and you're paying for storage. It's crazy.
It's crazy, man. I used to actually manage a self-storage back in the day when I was younger, and it was primarily for cars. It was like antique classic car storage. There was also other storage that went in there, but some of these car guys would have 10, 12 car bays, and they would have them for decades. I mean, some of our guys were there 10, 15 years, and they were paying for 12 garages. There's so many different. It's a universal and very flexible model for a lot of different people to find ways to create. So let's get into it real quick. I know we have a limited amount of time. We don't want to bore people too much. There's some important notices here, which if you get to the point where you decide you want to invest with us and you want to have that conversation, we'll hook you up with Paul Vincent, our attorney, and he can explain all that stuff. But also understand when we get into this, guys, again, it's for accredited investors. And you could talk about this for a second, Tim, but it's for accredited investors. There's disclosures, there's docs, there's feasibility studies, there's reports, there's all kinds of stuff that goes in the back end, along with our PPM, which explain everything about the investment itself long before you're ever able to write a check or send money to us. Did I cover that, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is a federally registered investment, right? So we filed with the SEC. They know that this exists. We are held to a higher standard. There's a lot of syndicators, a lot of people who do commercial real estate that don't do that, right? And they can kind of do things kind of, off radar, off the cuff kind of thing. And we don't do that. We operate in black and white. We do everything above board and want to make sure that this is a completely transparent opportunity for the feds, for investors, for operators, for everybody involved. So yeah, I mean, we make sure that you have all the documentation. I wouldn't say it's a labor. I wouldn't say it's a labor of love, right? It's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's a lot of money. I mean, how much have you spent? You spent over 6 figures on this thing so far, just on front end due diligence. And so this isn't like, hey, came across a motivated seller lead, and I'm just going to go and buy this thing. This is like a lot of due diligence, $100,000 plus of fees paid to attorneys and CPAs and feasibility studies saying, hey, this is an amazing project or it's not an amazing project and all that kind of stuff. And I know you're going to go into, what the feasibility kind of like appraiser came in and came up with, because, for how many years he's been in the business and what he said about this project is pretty amazing. So it's exciting. I mean, we make sure we do everything that needs to be done to stay compliant on every single level.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. All right, let's get into it. Without further ado, let's talk about the leadership team real quick. I mean, for those of you that are watching us right now, I'm not going to kill this one because, most of you are friends of ours in Facebook and world, and you know who we are, you know who Tim is. But on the leadership side of this, legacy developers is for all intents and purposes me, my partner, Brian Brogan, our COO, who you guys, again, have probably seen on here multiple times. Brian and I have been doing residential fix and flip for well over a decade. I think it's going on like 13, 14 years now. And we flipped hundreds and hundreds of homes. And in that time, we've learned how to do it the hard way. And we've learned some of the ways to make it a little bit easier. And after years of study, we finally said, you know what, this is the industry we're going after. Self-storage is amazing. We're talking to great developers. We're talking to other people in the industry. This is the place where we can parlay our expertise in what we've learned over the course of our lifetime and really plug it into an awesome development opportunity. So our legacy builders, our legacy developers team, again, years and years of experience. Brian and I grew up in the construction industry. I did 6 years in the military in the U.S. Navy Seabees, which is actually also construction battalions. It stands for. So I've been in construction for my whole life since I was 8, 9 years old. Was able to carry a broom and sweep up a job site. So Tim, we don't have your name on here, but I'd love to have you talk about yourself for a second. I know a lot of people again follow you, but you've built up quite a portfolio for yourself in the last few years.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been in real estate since 2005. And actively investing since 2009. And I started out in the residential realm, flipping houses, wholesaling houses. And I had a management company, was in the turnkey business. I used to manage some of Joe's stuff, sold the management company. And I've done a little bit of everything. I've done self-storage, office, apartments, high-end, low-end, land development, new construction projects, ground-up townhouse developments, vacation rentals, like you name it, I've done pretty much everything. We've refined just to commercial real estate and specifically multifamily and self-storage. So today, I own a little over 3,900 units, a portfolio of around $336 million. And a lot of the deals that we do are similar to this. They're either value add, where we go in and find distressed property and fix it all up and clean it all up, put good tenants, good management in place, and then we refinance it and hold it. Or it's new development like this, where we build from the ground up, and then we turn around, we refinance it on the back end once it's all built and leased out. And the reason we do that is because we're investors, right? And you see a lot of people out there who've invested in real estate the past few years, and they're buying at a retail price and speculating that tomorrow the value is going to go up. That's not what we do. We are very calculated in how we invest and how we buy property. And we create appreciation by putting sweat equity into these things, by either building it, new construction, or by doing some heavy renovations on it. And so because of that, we're able to buy at a discount, we're able to create appreciation. And now there's a spread there where it gives us a lot of options. There's a lot of equity in our properties. And although I built my portfolio over the past 5 years, it's not one of these portfolios where I say it's worth $330 million and I owe $330 on it. It's worth $336 million. We only owe $210 million on it. So there's a lot of equity built up in our portfolio because of the model that we use that we're using on this project as well. So we've had a lot of success with it, a lot of amazing projects that we've gotten involved in, and offered some awesome returns for our investors in the process. So we're excited for this one.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Let's jump right into it, guys. Let's talk about the industry itself. Okay. What makes the industry, we've touched on this a little bit. It's kind of an economically insulated industry for a couple of reasons. And we're going to talk in a second a little bit about what that looks like and why. But here's a couple of the headline bullet points, right? First of all, it's recession resistant. Demand is always going to be, relocation, divorce, death, retirement, college enrollment, people downsizing, people shifting their businesses growing, right? Looking for extra space to keep their stuff. It's also, again, this is also a great alternative for businesses, rather than, buying or building a warehouse or, renting costly warehouses. For example, these guys can rent a garage space, the equivalent here for, $150 a month. That's something that, out in the regular world, it might cost them $400 or $500 a month. We came across that fact, ironically, by realizing, because I've owned a general contracting company here for a decade, we've been paying $400, $500, $600, $700 a month for garage bays, for extra storage. And, so we look at our model and we're like, man, I would use my own storage facility if I had this option back then, right? That was interesting. It's also a strong demand in the fact that, believe it or not, 1 in 11 households have some sort of self-storage. The more I'm talking about this deal with people, the more we're having these, kind of casual conversations. People say, oh yeah, I had my stuff in storage, and it was in there for 4 or 5 years. And like Tim just said, his dad had some stuff in there. It was up for 20 years, right? Everyone's got some sort of relation to a self-storage unit. At least 10% of households, about 10% of households already have or are currently using self-storage. Again, some of the other stuff, entry barriers. It's the town planning board thing, right? The opposition is easy from town planning boards. We actually went in and got a variance on this property. It was slated to be used as a senior care facility. The previous buyer who was going to develop it into senior care actually sold the license to a local hospital instead of development. So when we went in and said, hey, instead of the senior care, we want to do a self-storage. Believe it or not, we had 4 or 5 residents that were there initially to kind of oppose it because they didn't want any type of development happening. And within an hour, we had 7 out of 7 yes votes on the zoning board. The residents were shaking my hand. They understood the low impact on the area. There's not going to be a lot of cars driving in and out. It's not like having a gas station in your backyard. This is a quiet facility. It's secure. It's lit. It's safe. So residents tend to like these type of things better than whatever alternative might happen to be built there. And last but not least, believe it or not, again, everyone thinks the REITs, the big companies, the Extra Space, the CubeSmarts of the world, they own, all of the market, and we're competing against guys like that. The truth is, when you see those buildings, a lot of times that's a marketing package. They're actually paid to manage that facility, and one day they might buy it. But for the time being, REITs the big boys only control about a quarter of the nation's facilities. So a lot of these are your, mom and pop startup, building, growing, adding, and then inevitably our goal long term would be to sell off to the REITs. But a lot of this stuff is controlled by mom and pop owners, which I think is pretty interesting. Tim, you want to add anything to that?
No, man. I mean, it's it's one of those things where the big REITs and the big hedge funds, they don't want to go out and do the work, right? They want to buy these things after they're already built, and they're buying into cash flow immediately. And they're not really willing to get their hands dirty. We're in a position where we're bigger than the small guys, but we're not really competing with the big guys. And we have an amazing niche of opportunity for us. It's stuff like this.
Absolutely. Love it, man. So some other stuff about the business, right? Number one, you got low overhead. The facility that we're getting ready to build, very, very few, if any, employees, right? We have third-party management. I'm going to talk about the way that they keep everything virtual at the bottom, right? It's a secure, again, facility, locked gates, motion detection, video surveillance, well lit, well controlled. But again, we're going future on this thing, right? So we're going to actually have a kiosk that allows people to come in, talk to somebody live through a kind of a Skype chat or a Zoom window type of thing, talk about the asset, talk about the availability of units, talk about the pricing of things, and actually sign leases live, take a credit card payment, and actually send people, hey, your unit is over here. Here's your combination. Welcome to the facility. And I think that this is one way to really advance the future of how things are going to be done, and create a facility where, back in the day, if you think about how storage facilities were designed, people used to have 3-bedroom apartments in there, and the manager would be living on site, and it's just, nobody wants that anymore, right? They want quick, they want easy. I mean, God, my residential team buys houses via text now, right? So people just want to be in and out. They don't want to be held back. They don't want to be slowed down by the guy at the front desk. They want ease of access, and they want to just come in and store their stuff. So we're going to make that very easy for them. Also, the maintenance and the repairs are low. I mean, we're building a facility where everything's steel, concrete, and hard surfaces, right? So this is not like a custom home where you got things breaking or plumbing issues. Literally, there's one toilet on the whole site, right? 100,000 square foot site, and there's going to be one toilet. So, which is all that's necessary on a facility like this. So again, that keeps our maintenance and our management down low. Water usage and all that kind of stuff obviously is low because we don't have a lot of it. And of course, high yields. At the end of the day, what do our investors care about? They care about a safe investment. They care about the asset. They care about the people behind it, but they also care about the yields, right? And this type of deal allows us to provide really, really good returns for our investors, which again, Tim's going to talk about here in a second. Sticky tenants, we talked about that, right? 60, 70, $80 a month to put your stuff on storage. Is it worth the effort for them to decide to cancel it? They're not going to, because the storage facility down the road, is newer or cleaner. Like, are they going to go move their stuff, right? So once they're in, they're generally in, right? Until they decide to make a life change, which is great. And also it's a matter of control as well, because when a tenant is late on their rent, literally, the front gate doesn't open until they get caught up. So people don't want to lose their stuff. They don't want to take that risk. So they continue to make payments and keep their stuff current. And also, again, we talked about the changing demographics, leveraging technology, like I just talked about. For us, we're going to have a lot of online automations, online bill pay, online automatic rent charges, things like that. So it'll help us continue to stay up with the technology. We'll be the most advanced site in our area when this property is built. Tim, anything?
No, man, I love it. This is all new stuff that Joe just put together. So this is really, really good information. I'm just impressed with all the bullet points and everything that you put together and refined, amazing content. So appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, man.
I can tell you that it's very different and way easier to manage self-storage than it is multifamily, and the valuations come back the same, and the cash flow is actually better, right? And so it's remarkable how much easier and how many more efficiencies can be put in place with auto access and these opening gates and closing gates. You don't have to have it manned all the time, although occasionally we will. And the maintenance is minimal. Like I posted yesterday, I had one of my apartments catch on fire because somebody was cooking a pork chop and walked away from it, right? And like the whole apartment went up in flames at one of my buildings, and that happened 2 nights ago. And I'm like, dude, you don't have that stuff here. You don't have any faucets. You don't have any plumbing. You don't have any leaky toilets or any of that kind of nonsense. And from a standpoint of, there's a lot of regulation going on in like the multifamily realm, where it's a little bit harder to, states and municipalities are becoming a lot more tenant friendly than they are landlord friendly. In this capacity, you're not kicking somebody out of their house. So if somebody doesn't pay, you go and put an extra lock on their locker, and in order to get their stuff out, they got to go and pay. Or you get to take all their stuff and you get to auction it all off and probably make a lot more than what the rent was anyways. So it's just very easy to manage this, which is like a huge benefit to us as landlords and our investors, because the ROI is very steady and very stable and very consistent and predictable.
Yeah, it actually makes it easier to scale, easier to do more of these deals. And back to your pork chop story, our lease specifically excludes people from being able to cook anything, let alone pork chops. It might say pork chops in there, I'm not sure. But,
bacon.
They're not allowed to cook. Right. So, and again, the maintenance, and I want people to understand, because the site is not manned does not mean it's not secure, it's not live, it's not monitored, and we don't have maintenance people nearby if and when and needed something's necessary. But the truth is, on a day-to-day, this is a much, much easier property to maintain and to keep managed.
And
So,
save money. And save, like, by not having people on site and just being able to remotely monitor cameras and that kind of stuff, it reduces the operating expenses, which increases the net operating income, which puts more money in all of our pockets, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've said this before and I say it again, this is the best deal by far I've ever been able to offer any of our investors. You know, we've raised $30-40 million in our time, you know, just flipping single family houses and doing some new construction developments and stuff like that. I've never been able to give the returns that we can give on this facility, right? And we're going to talk about that. It's exciting. We'll talk about that in a minute. The preferred return, the equity in the building, the residual cash flow, the refinance proceeds. So many ways that people, our investors, can make money in this deal, and it all has to do with, it stems from this stuff, right? The low cost of maintenance, the management, the overhead, and the time consumption that goes into this deal. It's all being given back to our investors in droves at the end of this thing.
It's
So,
hey,
yeah.
what kind of timeline are we on this, by the way?
I was just going to say, we got about 10 minutes left, so I'm kind of going to skip over the business strategy. I'm going to get to the nuts and bolts of stuff. You know, if that's cool with you. So, just quick about our criteria. What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for a minimum 60,000 net rentable square feet. You guys are going to see some more of these deals come up in the distant future here, and you're going to see they're all meeting that criteria. One of the reasons we do that is because, again, the REITs like stuff that's 60,000 and above, right? So we're trying to hit 60,000. This particular site we're talking about today is 80,000. So it hits that criteria. You want to be anywhere between 60 and 100. We're looking for strong submarkets. We're looking for value-added development or repositioning opportunities. So you see a lot of the multi-unit, multi-family guys look for value-add. What does that mean? It means I'm going to buy it at a certain price. I'm going to put a certain amount of money into it, which will allow me to increase rents, which will allow the property to become worth more, right? And that's how we add value. Well, repositioning opportunities or value-added development is not that much different, right? We're going to take a piece of ground. We're going to add this site to it, which is going to increase the value of the property, as well as create a great return for our investors. And we're going to do that in a time frame we'll talk about here in a second. So, and we're also looking for primary, secondary markets. This market that we're talking about today is literally right outside of Philadelphia, about 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia. For those of you that aren't familiar with South Jersey or New Jersey, you know, you got Philadelphia on one side, you got the Jersey Shore on the other side, and we're in the middle. We're towards Philadelphia. We're about 20 minutes away from Philly on the major highways that take you down the shore. So, and in a very busy area residentially. So let's talk about the numbers real quick, right? High level, and I'll let Tim jump in on this in a second here. Purchase price is $1.45 million. It's going to cost us roughly $7 million to develop it. Okay, we're leaving on hand 1.5. That's holding. That's cash reserves, it's closing fees, closing costs, and it's the ability for us to understand we have a construction loan in place for $7 million on that development cost. So the 1.5 gives us cash reserves to put work in place as we take those construction draws back. So all in on this project, we're going to be just under $10 million bucks, and at a conservative cap rate based off of our feasibility reports and our studies and the income that this property should be producing when everything is said and done. We're going to be just under 19 million in completed value, right? So what's that mean? It means that we've created for us and our investors 8.95 million in added value in equity, right? We've taken a $10 million site, excuse me, a $10 million all in, and we've created 18.9 out of it. Leads us about just under 9 million in equity created in the deal. So Tim, anything you want to hit on this? And we're going to go into the specifics of the investor stuff. Next slide.
I mean, I just did the math on it. It's 52.6% loan to value. So like you don't find deals like this, right? Like this is a once a year at best kind of an opportunity.
I got to write that down because, you know, we do all the math on everything, trying to make sure we're 100% spot on. And I keep saying 60%, 60 cents on the dollar or less. I wasn't even quite sure we were 52. That's amazing. So, you know, like Tim said, to be able to get into a development like this and be 52 cents on the dollar, it's not unheard of, but it's very rare, right? This is rare air that we're breathing here, and this is stuff that, you know, creates great opportunity, like I said, for our investors. So, what's the area look like? Just a quick overview. You can see some major apartment buildings. This is all within, you know, a mile or two. You can see Trump National Golf Club is right down the street. We have tons of residential around. You know, the Zillow images just to show you what's around, what's the residential. Realize when you're doing these, you want to be in a mid-market, right? We don't want super expensive homes, and we don't want to be kind of where really, really, really cheap homes are, because obviously in the lower sector, this is not an expense that they're willing to take on. And in a more, higher price point houses, generally they have extra square footage. So they're just filling their 2,000 square foot basement with crap, right? We want to be in that mid sector. We want to be around apartments. We want to be the people who are upsizing and downsizing and still have stuff, right? They don't have room for it in their 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. So naturally they're going to go to a facility like this that's nearby. We're going to be the newest, the cleanest, the lightest, the brightest, the most secure. And that time, talk about the feasibility study for 1 second. I sent an email out to my clients list and my investors a couple of days ago, and we called this a home run investment deal. Those actually weren't my words. Those are the words of the guy who did the feasibility study. This is a $10,000, $12,000 report that we do to fully vet the numbers on the deal, right? Are the demographics sustain? Is the location good? Is the cost all in going to be making sense for people? He literally goes, I don't even know, 100-page report. I mean, it's an awesome read for those that get geeked out about stats and things like that. But the person who wrote that report for us has actually been in the business since 1984. He's been doing it a long time, and he actually took Extra Space public back in the 90s. This is a guy, when he started with Extra Space, they had 7 facilities. And then by the time he left with them, he was the vice president of acquisitions, and they were buying 1 a week, right? 1 a week. Those are long-term goals for us. But, essentially, this guy knows his stuff. He knows his markets, and he does this in every area of the country. He's actually from Utah. So when you pay him for the feasibility, they hop on a plane and they spend 2 days on the site interviewing your competition, interviewing everyone around to find out what's their competition look like, what's their availability, what's this facility look like, does it have climate control, does it not have climate control, how's the security look, what's the management look like, and they give you a full report on this. And in every category, we smoke our competition with this new facility based on the feasibility report. One thing to remember, which I think is interesting, because people say, well, the market's softening, what's happening in COVID, people are still going to be building these things. The feasibility study is based off of the density of the people around, as well as their likelihood to need a facility. And he claimed that the demand was over 240,000 square foot was necessary in this location. Okay. Like I said to you before, we're building 80,000 square foot. So we could build 3 of these facilities and still barely meet the demand of the area. And that's why it's interesting with self-storage. It's a lot. It's based on location. You hear that in real estate a lot. Doesn't make a lot of sense a lot of times with office and commercial or multifamily or even single family. You can kind of get away with not being in the right location. In self-storage, location is paramount to your ability to fill that facility and get paying tenants in place. Tim, anything to add?
No, man.
All right.
Hit it on the nose.
All right, so this is the fun part. I'm going to get into this, and then I'm going to let Tim hit the financial projection sector. This was actually some snippets that came out of that report Tim talked about earlier. Our guys at Marcus and Millichap sent us over a report on the self-storage industry, and this was the heading at the top of the report: self-storage well-positioned entering the downturn. Investors may balance portfolio with assets. And what they talked about in here was, now may be the time, if you're in a different sector, if you're in office, if you're in multi, if you're in any type of commercial sector, and you're looking to reposition your funds into better assets or more secured assets, self-storage might be a place to look, right? And I thought that was really interesting. They talked about here how it worked through the last recession in 2008, in 2009. Hopefully this isn't going to be that, but all indicators point that things are softening, right? If you're going to have cash, this is the industry to put it in. Essentially, that's what they're talking about. This was the one that could be insulated the best through the cycle, and the demand is going to stay there. Again, we talked about all the reasons why that demand is so important. But for this industry, doesn't change much in a downcline. You heard Tim talk about his facilities really weren't affected at all since COVID hit, where a lot of other sectors have been. You have office buildings, for example, knock on wood, people are getting caught up, but it was scary there for a few weeks. I mean, you got a lot of sectors that are being affected brutally by this outcome, by this COVID-19 piece. Mm-hmm. So Tim, you want to talk about the numbers for a second? I'm not sure. Can you see that? I hope you can. Okay, cool.
So our investors get paid 4 different ways, and these are the 4 pillars of the wealth building strategy that we put together for our investors. And the reason we can pay these kinds of returns is because we're buying it at such a low basis. And Joe and his team are the ones forcing appreciation, creating the appreciation, dedicating the next 2.5 years of their life to build this thing out, get it all leased up, and then put quality management in place. So it's a very heavy lift on Joe's team, but because he's so capable of doing that, we're able to take bank financing at a much lower cost of capital and arbitrage, or not arbitrage, but blend it with these returns for our investors and able to make it a quality cost of capital, blended cost of capital is pretty minimal over the entire project that way. So that's why we can offer these kinds of returns. And I want to dive into the 4 ways real quick on how our investors get paid. So the first way is when they invest, let's say somebody writes a check for $100,000. And I think this is based on a $100,000 investment, right?
Yep. This is based on $100,000 investment. Yep.
So this is based on a $100,000 investment. The way that we do this is if they invest $100,000, we pay an 8% preferred return regardless of the property's performance. So this is very different than traditional syndications. We are making payments on a quarterly basis throughout the construction period. So you're getting predictable returns. That $9.9 million that we're all into this for includes an interest reserve to make sure that we can pay our investors throughout the period of development. So that is inclusive, the 52% all in is inclusive of paying interest, paying a preferred return to our investors. So it's not like it's on top of that. This is all baked into those numbers that Joe had shared with you. So we pay an 8% return, steady, stable, predictable, backed by prime real estate, not volatile like the stock market is. This is steady payments, 8%. So you're making $8,000 a year paid on a quarterly basis, so $2,000 every quarter. We make our payments in January, April, July, and October, along with quarterly updates on what's going on with the project. So that is what you make while your money is invested. We're looking at a total timeline of around 24 to 36 months of how long the money will be invested. We're saying 36 months just to be on, to under promise, and we're hoping to over deliver and get this thing done in 24 months for you guys and have you all your money back. But in the meantime, you're getting a stable return on your money despite what's going on with the stock markets. So that's number one. Once we get the property built and we get it all leased out and we're at 90% occupancy, we can go back to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, CMBS, or a life insurance company who will then lend us money based on the new stabilized value. So they're going to look at $19 million and they're going to give us a loan at 75% of that. So when we go out and we get a new loan, they're going to give us, what's 75%? I don't know, let's say it's $14 million. I'm shooting from the hip because I don't have the exact numbers on here.
Yeah, I just real quick, I don't want to interrupt you, Tim, but we're going to even more conservative. We're going to go 70% LTV, so our numbers are based on 70 instead of 75, and we're going to be at about 13.2 on the refi, which still leaves a huge spread there for the investors. I'll let you finish up. So
that means when we go and get a new loan, they're going to give us a new loan at 13.2, even though the value is 19 or 18.9. So when we get a loan for 13.2, that's going to pay back the $7 million acquisition loan, the construction loan, and it's going to pay back the $3 million of investor capital that we borrowed. So then there's another $3 million of non-taxable refinance proceeds. So you as an investor, invest in our project, you make 8% on your money while it's invested, you get all your money back, okay? That alone is a very respectable return, I think. But on top of that, we give you equity in perpetuity. For every $100,000 invested, you get 1% equity for the life of ownership of this property, which is unheard of, right? Like 1% might not sound like a lot. I'm going to go over what that actually does for your return and what that looks like from a dollar standpoint. It's substantial. And secondly, think about if you bought a stock that pays dividends, you get paid dividends while the stock is performing, right? You sell the stock, you don't get dividends anymore, but that's what you get still here. You get all your money back and you still get dividends and cash flow and depreciation and refinance proceeds and future sales proceeds by having equity long-term in this project. So you invest your money, it's invested for 24 to 36 months, you make 8% on it. You get all your money back at the time of the refinance. Then for every $100,000 invested, you get 1% of the refi proceeds. That's another $32,000 of non-taxable refinance proceeds. So you're going to get that at the time of the refinance when you get your money back as well. So that now takes your IRR, your internal rate of return, or your cash on cash return between the 8% pref and the refi proceeds, and jumps it up to, what is it? It's nearly 20%, or it's probably north of 20% per year, right?
It's. I think we had it almost at 40 is where it brings it to.
Well, it's the cash on cash is between just the refi proceeds and the pref payments. Let's say you had it in for 30 months. That's $20,000 plus 32,000 equals divided by 2.5. That's a 20.8% cash on cash tax advantage return. The pref
You're
return,
right.
pref payment alone is not tax. Like if you lend somebody money and you get paid interest on it this year, typically you're paying your earned income tax bracket this year, and you're paying taxes on that money. Because of the way that we structured it, because we hold these assets long term, you don't pay taxes on the 8% pref this year. You don't pay taxes on it until the property sells, if the property sells. And when it does, it's reclassified into a long-term capital gains at a lower tax bracket. So it's a tax deferred, tax advantaged, and the refi proceeds are tax free, 20%, right? So that's an amazing return on its own. Not only that, but you also have equity in the deal. Remember how the new loan amount's $13 million, the property's worth $19 million. So there's $6 million of equity that we don't actually touch. We can't receive that right now, but it does build your balance sheet. It does increase your net worth and your personal financial statement. And that you get 1% of that equity, which was worth, around $57,000. So again, you don't receive that, but it builds your personal financial statement. And it technically almost pays out like a dividend by the cash flows that it creates. So you also get 1% of all the cash flows that the property kicks off for as long as we own it. So the benefit here is, I think the cash flow is around $2,200. So it's just shy of $200 per month, which, is it make you rich? No, but it's a nice little annuity, right? Pays for Chipotle, pays for a couple of drinks out and a happy hour, or just kind of pads the kids' bank account or whatever you want to do with that money. And that cash flow is offset significantly by depreciation. And over time, our tenants pay down the principal balance on our loan. The property appreciates in value because every year the rents get bumped 3 to 5%. So the cash flow increases over time, and that equity spread will increase over time as well. And we put together just a little model here where it says, if we just made our 12 annual mortgage payments, right, and we let the property appreciate by 2.5% over the next 10 years, and you just make standard principal pay down payments, your $57,000 jumps to $137,000 in value. So if we sold this thing 10 years from now, even though you've had no money invested and you got a big chunk of refi proceeds and you got a pref payment, you've had cash flow for the past 10 years, when the property sells, you would also get $137,000 10 years from now. Or maybe we refinance it, you pull out a portion of that tax-free and we hold it for another 10 years, right? Or maybe we sell it in year 15. That's $160,000. So there's a lot of different variables. We're going to let future Tim and future Joe make that decision 10 years from now based on how the market is at that time. And maybe some real estate trust or hedge fund comes in and makes us some stupid offer, and we got to take it, right? We're smart business people, and we're going to make that decision based on where we are whenever our loan term comes due. So 4 different ways that you get paid. 8% return while the money's invested. Then you get all your money back. At that time, you get a percentage of the refinance proceeds. Then you get equity in perpetuity, and you get cash flow for as long as we own the building. If you add up just the value of the pref return, the refi proceeds, and the equity that's worth, it's north of 40%. What is it? 57 plus. I'll do the math real quick on it.
I was just going to say, while you're doing the math, Tim, that 40% was what I was talking about, was the all-in. The internal. Yep. Just having the cash on cash IRR at 20 plus is incredible. I don't know anyone that's making that in on a standard investment loan.
Dude, it's tax advantaged. It's like, yeah, it's insane, right? Like, yeah, so crazy. If you add in the value of the equity, it jumps to 43.6% total value created from your $100,000 investment. 43% annualized over 2.5 years. Like, try to find something else that has predictable return on investment, that has wealth building equity in perpetuity, that has cash flow, that has tax advantages, backed by one of the most stable asset classes in the world, right?
It's crazy.
I would put this toe to toe against anything else that's out there. So it's an awesome opportunity. If you guys want to jump in, or if you guys have interest in learning more, what's the next step, Joe?
Well, I'm going to tell you two things. Number one is that 8 pref. We're doing something that this is the first time I'm announcing this, and I want to make sure everybody hears this. For the first 1.5, we're raising $3 million in this deal. First of all, everything you see below is $100,000 invested. So let's imagine you had 3 or 4 or 500. You could multiply by 5 for everything that's below here. The second piece is the first 1.5, the first half of what we raise, we're going to increase it to a 10 pref. Okay. So in other words, we're going to create, instead of an 8% preferred return, we're going to jump it to a 10. We're calling this a quick action bonus, right? The goal here is to raise all of this in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And the truth is, some people have a hard time getting off the fence. So I want to push them a little bit, give them that incentivization, right? 10 pref for the first 1.5 that comes in. So I think that'll get some more people excited. What do you think, Tim?
I like it.
I love it.
Cool. Yeah. At first I'm hearing of it too. So I think that's a good idea. So next step, if you guys are interested in participating or getting more information, obviously we have feasibility studies, we have private placement memorandums, we have subscription agreements, we have all the due diligence financing packages, and everything you could possibly want, all the detailed, all the analytics, everything to do a deep dive into this stuff. And for those of you who have more questions and want more information, reach out to Joe. His phone number and email address are right there on the screen. And if you're ready to rock and roll and you're like, hey, count me in, I'm good for 2 units, shoot Joe a text message, shoot him an email, and commit right now so that way he can lock you in for the 10% pref.
I love it, man. So there you go, guys. There's the email address, joe@investwithlegacy.com. That is my actual cell phone number. Don't put in one of those spam bots. Just text me, call me. Let's talk about this deal. If you or someone is in that position, or maybe it's your retirement account, you want to see self-directed. There's so many awesome creative strategies that we can create for you guys that not only add all 4 of these types of returns to your bottom line, but can create other avenues of return as well. So I'd love to hop on the phone, talk to you. You can hit up Tim directly as well. You guys are all on Facebook. You can PM him, talk about the deal. This will close. We'll close this fund in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I want to see, the people who are ready to take action, want to jump on it. Hit me up today. Let's talk about it. I'd love to get you involved.
And we're closing on the land, and we're I think first in queue as soon as the zoning commission opens back up. So I think that's planning for end of this month or beginning of next month, and then we're going to close within the next couple of weeks, I think, thereafter. So we're closing on this bad boy in the next 30 to 40 days. And so that's why we want to have all the capital in. As soon as the money hits the account, that's when you start accruing interest and the 10% pref. So hit us up, fill out the documents, first come, first serve. Well, we'd love to have you guys in and get your money out of the stock market. That volatility kills your returns.
Absolutely. Now they're back up, right? So now's the chance. Don't take that dive that you jumped off of a couple months ago. So awesome, Tim. I appreciate you being on, man. Guys, if you're watching and you're interested, hit me up. Love to talk to you about it. Otherwise, have an amazing day. Thanks for watching. Cool. All right.